Hey guys, it's Fancy, and you're watching the Good Wives Network, and I am back, serving up another true crime case. This one comes to us out of Australia. In 2022, a little girl, 8 years old, passed away. Her name was Elizabeth Struhs, and she died in her family home in Toowoomba, west of Brisbane, on January 7th of 2022, after her parents and 12 others allegedly withheld her diabetes insulin medication for over 6 days. So the parents of Elizabeth, they belong to this sort of cult, and it's called the Saints. So the Crown prosecutor Carolyn Marco said Elizabeth's father, Jason Richard Struhs, had waited 36 hours after learning of her death before calling for an ambulance. Quote, Mr. Struhs to police said he told everyone, even though God will still raise Elizabeth, he couldn't leave a corpse in the house. He could not leave her lying there forever, Ms. Marco said. So after the police arrest him and Elizabeth's mother, who was 49 years old, Carrie Elizabeth Struhs, and other members of the group, they were very happy that police were investigating. Quote, the mother of defendant Emily Schoenfish said she was elated as she explained that they had to contact authorities to take Elizabeth's body away, but that must be because God wants more people to see her rise, Mrs. Marco said. Ms. Marco said Elizabeth's parents and other defendants were present during Elizabeth's last days and on January 8th after she had died in the night. Quote, they gathered to pray for the rising of Elizabeth. They believed God would raise her from the dead so she could walk amongst them again, Ms. Marco said. So on Thursday, the religious group that consists of 6 men and 8 women, calling themselves the Saints, they had their second day in trial, and they refused to enter pleas into the Brisbane Supreme Court. Jason Struhs, 52, and the Saints leader Brendan Luke Stevens, 62, are charged with murder, while Carrie Struhs and the others are charged with manslaughter. Ms. Marco says Jason Struhs has been under continuous pressure from the other defendants to join the Saints and reject man-made treatments. Quote, pressure was brought on Jason Struhs to change, to persuade him not to administer insulin under their fundamental tenet that God heals, Ms. Marco said. She described the Saints as a small congregation with extreme beliefs that had split off from a church in Brisbane. And that's generally how the cults get started, is they don't like something that their religious affiliation is doing, and then they will just like kind of shoot off, and they'll take a lot of those principles with them, but they'll add their own weird shit. And that's how it kind of got started. I was in one of those. I was in something called the International Churches of Christ for a while, not to be confused with the Churches of Christ. They broke off from the Church of Christ and started their own section, and it was weird. And I can talk about that. I plan on talking about that in great detail because it was a very interesting part of my life. But this is how this happens. You know, these kind of smaller congregations, they have extreme beliefs. They break off from the mainstream of the religion, and then they just go hog wild with what they're doing. So apparently her father, Jason, agreed to be baptized into the Saints in August of 2021 while his wife was serving a 5-month sentence already for neglecting to provide Elizabeth with medical treatment in 2019, which nearly proved fatal. So they left the child within the care, and this is what happens. So Ms. Marco said Elizabeth had happily watched as her father was baptized into a faith that would soon convince him at first to withhold medical care and then wait for God to bring her back to life. Quote, in the video of the baptism, Your Honor can see Mr. Struhs submerged in a trough of water and Mr. Stevens speaking in tongues, members of the congregation singing and seeing Elizabeth's joy at her father being baptized, says Ms. Marco. She also continued to provide, she said that her father did continue to provide insulin for Elizabeth's type 1 diabetes, but it was leading to further attempts to get him to stop. So the people were still trying to pressure him. So Stevens wrote to Carrie Struhs in November 21 saying he was praying for Jason Struhs not to put off having God heal Elizabeth. Jason told police he decided he could not be half and half about his faith, and so he stopped giving Elizabeth her rapid acting insulin on January 1st, 2022. After this, that made the saints happy, so then he ceased her remaining slow release insulin doses, he told the police. So Elizabeth continued to get sicker, and police recovered deleted photos that depicted the congregation gathered around her unconscious body. The others accused are Zachary Allen Struhs, Loretta Maine Stevens, Teresa Maria Stevens, Andrea Louise Stevens, Acacia Neree Stevens, Camelia Claire Stevens, Alexander Francis Stevens, Sebastian James Stevens, Kieta Courtney Martin, and Lachlan Stewart Schoenfisch, the youngest being 21 years old while the eldest being 67. This is a judge-only trial. It is not a jury trial, and it is expected to go for about 11 weeks. So we will be covering it and updating you guys as it goes through the court system. The first ambulance and police officers to discover Elizabeth's body are likely going to be the first witnesses. And so that is this new story that is coming out. It started in 2022, and it is going through the court system now. It's very interesting to me. Because I truly believe, that my mother was a type 1 diabetic. I'm type 2. My husband's type 2. And insulin is needed to save our lives. We have the same problem with the Scientologists and the other ones, in Hollywood who don't believe in giving their children any type of treatment, medical care, medical treatment, because they believe that, God will heal. Well, here's my thing. God healed back in the day when we didn't have modern medicine, right? But if God is responsible for everything that's happened on this earth, as we believe, right, then wouldn't it stand to reason that that is God saving their lives by providing you with excellent medical care that can help aid in saving lives? I would think so. At least that's my thought process. There's a story there. Have a good one from the Good Wives. Serving up true crime, one dish at a time. Bye, guys. Mwah.